A lot of grieving people, including myself, thought and think that when hopelessness like thuds its heavy weight on top of grief, which is already heavy, it is very easy to think that there is nothing light or good in your world. But very tiny breaths of fresh air in the form of shifted perspective can keep you going when everything feels like it sucks and there is no point to anything. Hi there, Grief Growers, and welcome back to Grief Grower. I am so honored to be here with you today. My name is Shelby Forsythia. If you've been growing alongside me for a while, welcome back. And if you are new to me and my work, hello. I'm Shelby Forsythia, a grief coach, two-time author, and the founder of Life After Loss Academy, which is an online course and community that has helped dozens of grieving people stop feeling stuck, lost, broken, and alone, and start building lives that they love from the ones that loss forced them to live. This, of course, not only includes death-related loss, but also divorce, breakup, and diagnosis, and any other major transition that changes your life. Here on the show, we believe that grief ain't something to get over. It is not a problem to be diagnosed or fixed. It is an invitation to live more deeply with ourselves and our fellow humans, and to create meaningful lives that are rich with the memories that we carry, the struggles that we faced, and the awareness and the preciousness of what it is to be alive right here and right now. As I mentioned on the past two podcast episodes, I've got some live events coming up. If you'd like to join me here in the future, we'll get through these really fast, and then I would love to get into today's topic because I know it's one that so many grieving people struggle with. This Sunday, if you are free and available in Chicago, I am co-sponsoring the Talk Death Cemetery Scavenger Hunt, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is a scavenger hunt in a cemetery. And this is something that's happening nationwide across the U.S. So if you are not in Chicago, you can find a Talk Death Cemetery Scavenger Hunt somewhere near you by going to their website. And it is a way to explore cemeteries, meet other people who are interested in talking about death, dying, bereavement, and grieving, and to sort of be in a space normally associated with sadness and death, and to be playing a game, to be participating in something else besides sorrow, or in addition to sorrow, in a place that is normally devoted to just that. I, of course, will be there. Angel Luna of Death and Friends, which is the #1 comedy podcast about death and loss, hosted by two comedians, will be there. Grace Robbins of Koi Metromania, which is a Chicago-based cemetery education platform, will be there. And Jensen Allen, the director of Graceland Cemetery and Arboretum, which is where this is taking place, will be there as well. In the late morning, we will have some cemetery tours. You can join one of two waves of free cemetery tours. We're going to have a Q&A about death, dying, cemeteries, and grief, of which I will be on. And then at 1:30, Talk Death will share a list of clues to find on their Instagram and website, and we will all disperse throughout the cemetery to try and find the clues that it has displayed. So things like interesting headstones, items that are often found in cemeteries, interesting names or dates. And I know that not every cemetery will have every clue, but the clues are inclusive enough that they include most cemeteries here within the United States. And of course, if you would like to win something, prizes are going to be awarded to whoever finds 13 clues and uploads them to the site first, the highest number of clues found, and accolades such as most creative photography. So there's lots of opportunities to make this fun and interesting, and just a really lovely way to connect, again, with people who are interested in talking about death and grief, which are communities that can be kind of hard to find in today's world. This event is free and open to the public, so I hope to see you there if you are a Chicago local, and you can register at shelbyforsythia.com/events. Second event coming up is the Grieftastic Book Fair. This is happening in November of this year, on November 21st, which is a Friday in LA. So if you are on the West Coast, I'm coming for you. My second book, Your Grief Your Way, has been chosen to be one of the books featured in the Grieftastic Book Fair, and it is just like your childhood book fair, the Scholastic Book Fair, only sadder. So it is a grief bookorama-palooza. It is a day entirely devoted to grief books, grief authors, and how we use words to talk about the experience of grief. This is happening at the Lux Hotel in Los Angeles and is a full day. There's a brunch early in the morning until noon, and then at noon the book fair opens up and you can buy books, shake hands with authors, watch panels, things of that nature. And I will be there signing books and also leading a panel with a few of my fellow authors. Rachel Cargill will be there, Rebecca Sofer, who has been a guest here on Grief Grower, David Kessler, Hope Edelman, Jennifer Past Kostoloff, and so many other authors will be there to talk to you about their grief books, to sell you their wares, and everyone gets to take home my favorite piece of conference merchandise ever. It is a tote bag called a sad sack, and it is filled with all kinds of grief-related items that will encourage you to read even more grief books. If you would like to come, you can use the code GRIEFBFF, GRIEFBFF, for 15% off tickets before they sell out, and they usually do sell out. And all proceeds from this event benefit Our House, which is a grief support center that provides services across LA. And if you're going to be attending the Endwell conference the day before on November 20th, I will be there also. You can use the code GRIEW25 to save 15% on that ticket, and I will be in the audience taking notes if you'd like to sit together and talk about what we're learning. I would love to see you at any or all of these events and connect in person. You can bring your books. I love signing them. Bring your stories. I love hearing them. Bring your loved ones. I love learning about them through your eyes. Okay, so now I want to get to the heart of this episode. It's a bit of a shift in emotional tone transition from talking about events and come see me and let's talk about grief together to talking about hopelessness. And people in my personal life and some students and clients who are longtime followers of my work know that hopelessness is my least favorite emotional experience related to grief. I love sorrow. I love anger, processing anger, helping other people process and name their anger, expressing anger. I love numbness sometimes, or learning about numbness and shock and figuring out ways to move through them. I even love heartachy nostalgia. There's a lot about the grief experience that I have grown to love through 12 years of being a grieving person, but hopelessness still to this day remains one of my least favorite emotional experiences to have, and I know that I am not alone. And so today's episode, I'm just going to go down a list, just bam, 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 of 8 small but helpful ways to make grief a tiny bit easier if you are living in the midst of hopelessness, helplessness, powerlessness, or despair. There's this faction of 4, hopelessness, helplessness, powerless, and despair, that all live together and make grief really extra hard. So if this is where you are right now, first off, you are not alone. And second off, I hope one or more of these tools can help you feel like you're able to lighten the hopelessness or set it off your shoulders for a minute or open a door into the stuffy or sticky room of your life that brings in some freshness or some light where it currently feels like there is none. Because there are seasons of life where grief does not just hurt. It feels as if it's scooping you out from the inside, and grief changes your relationship to yourself and to the world and to time and to meaning, and above all of these things, hope and autonomy and power. And there are days, and maybe for you and certainly for me, weeks and longer, where everything feels so relentlessly heavy that even getting out of bed in the morning feels impossible. So if you've been in that place, if you're in that place right now, you know that society's usual self-care tips just are not helpful, to say the least. You do not need a new morning routine or a fancy face mask. You need reasons to not pull the covers back over your head and say, what is the effing point? And to be clear, this podcast is not about fixing your grief or prettying up your hopelessness so that it never comes your way again. That's not something I have the power to do, and it's not possible. It's also not the point. What this podcast episode is for is gifting you a very tiny handful of small and oddly practical and sometimes morbidly funny, we'll get there, ways to keep moving when hopelessness is the thing that is in front of your face. These are ideas I've used myself or taught to others and also watched grieving people implement on their very worst days. So try them on, see if they work for you, or save this episode and revisit it or re-listen to it later or send to a friend who is feeling really hopeless in this season, especially as we approach the holidays. And as always with everything, take what resonates, discard the rest. Okay, so here are 8 small, helpful ways to make grief just a little bit easier, especially when everything feels impossible and when effort truly feels like moving mountains. Okay, number 1, and this is inspired by my book, Your Grief Your Way. It is make a list of things to stay up for. Because you probably heard people talk about something to get up for, having a reason to get up in the morning. But sometimes, the first part happens, I get up, but the next wave of grief hits while I'm already standing. And this is why I invite grieving people to make a list of things to stay up for. What keeps you out of bed? What keeps you from crawling back into bed? In other words, what are things that hold your attention even a little bit, even through the fog of grief? Or you could ask the question, what tethers me to the day when I want to disappear from reality or disappear into the couch cushions? Your list might include something beautiful, so like the way afternoon light comes through one window. It might be taking care of yourself or somebody else, for instance, like a pet or a child in your life or another family member or friend. It might be a favorite TV show or a podcast releasing a new episode. So like this podcast comes out every Thursday. If you are holding on till next Thursday, I see you. I'm here with you. Me too. Perhaps walking or driving to the park, even if you never get out of the car, or just turn right around and walk home. And something to stay up for might also include making yourself a meal, whether that's a bowl of cereal or soup or something more complicated than that. And this list of things to stay up for is not about a gratitude list. This is not about finding joy or happiness. These emotions might feel very, very, very far away or inaccessible to you right now. This exercise is about endurance, and naming small reasons that you stay up is part of honoring how hard it is to exist right now, and also how you are still doing it. It is almost like a list that reflects back to you. Look at all the reasons that you are staying up, and you are staying up. Number 2 on the list is to start a nope list instead of a to-do list. So some of these are going to be funny. I'm sorry for laughing. If you are in the midst of hopelessness, you're like, Shelby, nothing is funny right now. I'm going to laugh. It's okay if you laugh too. Hopefully by the end of this, we will be laughing together on some level, even if it's just the dark humor of hopelessness sucks, don't it? But I think making a nope list instead of a to-do list is really helpful because society often mistakes busyness for being healed. Like if I just look busy enough or productive enough, then I must be okay. But when you're grieving, having lots of things to do can just feel like more pressure to get over it and act like your heart isn't broken or that hopelessness has not just overcome your vision. So instead of goading yourself or prodding yourself to get busy in the midst of feeling hopeless, why not give yourself permission to opt out? So for instance, make a list of things that you refuse to do. So I will not respond to texts that drain me. I will not put on a brave face for anyone. I will not pretend I'm okay. I will not say yes to things I resent. And you can even add silly things to your list if you want to. For instance, I will not explain my resting grief face. I will not wear pants with buttons. This is one I actually did with a client who was like, we are sweatpants wearers, period, while we are grieving. You can say something like, for instance, in the loss of a child, I will not attend another baby shower unless I am bribed with cake. If the cake is not there, why go? And they can just be the silliest, most petty reasons to nope out of things that can be really helpful when you're grieving. And as a bonus, this list is not just about noping out of things for the hell of it. It can also give you an idea of what is exhausting to you right now and where you might like to set boundaries around your time and energy and relationships, even if those boundaries only exist for a little while. So in this season or right now or in this moment, I'm not wearing pants with buttons. That's a boundary I'm setting with myself for myself. And if I have to go somewhere where the pants have to have buttons, then I'm out in this season. That could change next season, that could change in 3 months, that could change in 2 weeks, who knows? But having those sort of limited time boundaries that are attached to this list can be sort of a bonus way of interacting with what just feels like a little too much right now, and what would I like to nope out of, literally or metaphorically. And this helps you start naming those boundaries, one nope on your list at a time. Okay, number 3 on this list is one of my favorites because it really zooms in on what we talk about so often on Grief Grow, which is the preciousness of what it is to be alive right now. And if you're feeling hopeless, I imagine that nothing feels very precious right now, like everything feels meaningless or pointless or without direction. And choosing one tiny thing to care about, it is tempting to need or to demand from the universe a 5-year plan. Promise me it's going to get better than this. And what you hear back is crickets. And what I need to tell you is, when you cannot be given or handed a 5-year plan, because COVID taught us that everybody's 5-year plan's a little useless, a little pointless. Sometimes the thing that gets you out of hopelessness or just shifted into a slightly different frame of mind is caring about one thing, one anchor to the world, even if you were the only person who gives a crap about it. So this is my very specific list of small things I care about, and maybe they will inspire some of yours. One of mine is updates on TikTok from the Dandelion Crayon Girl, if you know what I'm talking about. This is a girl who's obsessed with dandelion crayons, and everyone who knows me knows that yellow is my favorite color, and watching her add to her dandelion crayon collection. The dandelion crayon was discontinued, I believe, in the 90s or early aughts, and she has led a campaign to bring the dandelion crayon back, and it's a whole to-do, and she is so wholesome and so creative and so clever with her discussion of this yellow crayon that I just can't help but be delighted every time she posts a new video. Another thing I care about in a small way is watching my wife do nighttime zoomies with our cat. I don't know what it is exactly about cats, but my wife is just completely obsessed with them, and she'll get down on the floor to play with them. She will make toys and buy endless amounts of toys that are in our house for the cat. And they're just things that I never did growing up to interact with our cats, and it's really beautiful and childlike to watch her play with our cat. Another thing that is a small care of mine is my neighbors' holiday decorations. My next door neighbors swap out their holiday decor like every 3 to 6 weeks or so, but it's never the same as it was last year. It's always something new and creative, and they have lawn flamingos that they dress up in costumes. My favorite one happened last summer. It was called Flamingo Bingo, where they dressed up all the flamingos as nuns, like in a Catholic rectory, and did like Flamingo Bingo. And you could get a prize sticker if you got bingo. Other things I'm looking forward to are the second season of a show I really love on Netflix, seeing my best friend's memorial tree bloom next June, and then watching a relative of mine get married next fall. And so as you can see, I kind of have the small things I'm looking forward to very much right now, like today and this week. And then I have small things that I care about and am looking forward to in some form or fashion next summer, next fall. Like I'm trying to zoom out as much as I can. If you can't zoom out, if all you can care about is somebody posting an update on social media tomorrow, go with that. And also, if you have small things on your list that aren't happening for a while, those are also worthy of belonging on your list. You can care about them and continue to care about them every day until they happen next year, and then pick another small thing to care about. So if it's seeing the robin in your yard that you've been looking out for lay eggs in the spring, you gotta hang on until spring. You gotta negotiate or figure out how to live alongside hopelessness until spring. And that gives you a little mini project as a griever, a little mini task to do. And I have to say, like, your one tiny thing does not need to be deep or profound or even involve other people. It doesn't have to be something other people are excited about either. Just allow something or anything to matter to you for 1 minute. And this is not about distraction or magically conjuring up hope. It is about letting your heart practice staying open to the world through the lens of just one little thing. It's like I'm closed off to the rest of the world except for my next door neighbors and their yard decor. Closed off to the world, feeling hopeless about the state of things, except for Dandelion Crayon Girl. If that's where you're at right now, yes. And it's okay to stay there. You do not need to try and scramble out of this place as quickly as possible. It is a practice in noticing what small things can you care about, and can you eventually make a list of them? Can you add to that collection as you go? All right, number 4 is inspired by an interview I did a few years ago with Cheryl Strayed, who wrote the book Wild, and that is to make every day a scavenger hunt for beauty or for signs from your person if you're grieving a loved one who died. And this is a practice, again, that came to me by way of Cheryl Strayed, who's the author of Wild. She spoke about how her mother always taught her to put herself in the way of beauty, and so every single day, even when you're feeling hopeless, consider, how might I put myself in the way of beauty? How might I notice or find a single thread of connection to my person who died, if that's your grief, to my body, or to the world? So this could be a song on the radio, or a butterfly that maybe lands on your sleeve, or is flitting from yard to yard. This could be a meme that makes you laugh like hell, or a blooming tree in your yard. For so many grievers, it's nature. So I consider to look to nature if you can. And if not, there are other places and ways to find beauty. And if you are grieving the death of a loved one, please go back in the catalog of Grief Grower episodes. There's an episode about remembering a loved one using a signs and symbols library. And this is like tying in your 5 senses to remember somebody that you love who's died, and adding those 5 senses sort of stimuli to your beauty scavenger hunt clue collection can help you find even more things that feel grounding and connecting to you. And those are all sorts of anchors and tethers in the midst of hopelessness. It is a reminder that hopelessness is not all there is. Number 5 here is another one of my favorites, and one we talk about a lot in Life After Loss Academy. This is to give your grief a name and talk to it. When grief gets overwhelming, hopelessness is overwhelming, you're feeling powerless, you're feeling despair, you're feeling helpless, give your grief a name. And what this does is to separate the emotion of grief from the zone of your body and to kind of give you a power to talk back to it. Because if your grief is a separate entity from you, you can have a conversation with it. So you might consider a cartoon monster name like Griefzilla, or a place like the Pit or the Storm. You might give it a human name like George, which is kind of funny. I love when people name pets human names, and I love when people name their grief human names. Or you might just call it grief with a capital G. It can be something ridiculous or sacred or a combination of the two. And you might begin to talk to your grief or to your hopelessness like this. Like, you again, George? All right. Fine, just get in the car, but you're not driving the car today, and you're not picking the music either. Or, okay, grief, I hear you. What do you need from me? Or, geez Louise, the pit is really freaking loud today. Time to phone a friend. And externalizing your grief, making it a thing that exists outside of you, can help you reclaim your autonomy because it becomes something that you can acknowledge and even sort of hostage negotiate with, as opposed to something that owns you or dominates you or has taken you over. And seeing your grief as a living thing is something we explore in great detail in Life After Loss Academy. I encourage you to see your grief as a living thing, to see it as a long-term relationship, to the point where I encourage you to give it a name, draw pictures of it, describe it to all of us. And if you're interested in learning more and joining us for private group coaching about making your grief a living thing and living in long-term relationship with it, because we are all grieving forever for the rest of our lives, I hope you'll join us, and you can find more about joining Life After Loss Academy in the show notes. Okay, number 6 is a little hot, a little spicy. But this is what I've seen making the rounds on social media, especially lately, and this is to make a list of shitty people that you want to outlive. And this is for the grievers who feel like it is fun to dislike people. It is fun to hate on people or dunk on people. So I encourage you, if this feels aligned for you, and if it doesn't, skip this one, but if it does, make a list of people that you would like to outlive. These can be people you know personally, or public figures that just rub you the wrong way for whatever invalid or illogical or very valid reason you have. So you might write down someone who bullied you in high school, or a relative who has never had anything kind to say in your direction, or a celebrity that uses their fame for negative or nefarious purposes, or a politician who uses cruelty and force to get their way. Insist on outliving them, and look at your list as often as you need to, even and especially in the midst of hopelessness, and tell yourself, no matter how awful I feel today, I am determined to outlive insert shitty person's name here. And here's the thing, sometimes hopelessness can make you feel like your life is not worth living. But this list of shitty people to outlive can remind you that you're still here and you're still breathing, and your presence alone can make the world a kinder, more compassionate place just because you are in it. There is some sort of purpose or meaning, however small, in being alive to simply counteract the bullshit that other people are participating in their one wild and precious life. So sometimes making a list of people that you want to outlive is a great way to go when hopelessness is on your shoulders. Number 7 is inspired by an experience I had in my own life, and this is to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Because grief and hopelessness together have this bizarre tendency to make us feel invincible. For example, when I was waiting tables a few years after my mom's death, a customer at the restaurant yelled at me for forgetting one of her side dishes, and she was berating me in front of a bunch of other customers, the person she was dining with, blah, blah, blah. I was overcome. But as I was rushing to the kitchen to go retrieve it so I could bring it with their main courses, I thought to myself, I'm like, my mom died. You literally cannot hurt me more than that. And this sort of wave of wow, I am weirdly invincible now. You can't hurt me more than I've already been hurt. That was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. In the years since that incident, and in the many times I've told that story, I've met dozens and dozens of grieving people who report feeling a similar invincibility. You can't hurt me. I've lived through the worst after a loss. Because once the unthinkable has happened, once the devastating has happened, you might realize that most things in life that people are scared of are not as scary as they may have seemed before loss. And this can leave you feeling untouchable or reckless or free in ways that you may not have been before. And you can use that feeling of freedom to your benefit. So when you are in the thick of hopelessness, it might be worth asking, what if I said yes to something totally random? What if I stopped caring what insert person here thinks? What if I tried something new? What's the worst that could happen? And answer that question, honestly. Would you get rejected by a friend group? Could you lose your job? Would people just have thoughts about what you're doing, which is usually like the worst that could happen for a lot of things that people fear? Would people look at you funny? If that's the worst that could happen, I'm like, go for it. Go for it. Especially if that's something that could potentially have a positive effect on your grief. But this exercise is meant to let hopelessness and grief and despair and helplessness and powerlessness serve as permission slips to experiment, to sort of turn the knobs and turn the dials of your life. You could design your own year of yes via Shonda Rhimes. She's an author who wrote a book called The Year of Yes because she noticed she said no to a lot of things. And so for a whole year, she just committed to, I'm just going to say yes to every invitation that crosses my path. And she wrote a whole book about it. You could also just do anything that breaks you out of the monotony that you currently find yourself in, because you've already survived the worst thing that could possibly happen. So taking reasonable risks, again, I don't want you doing drugs or driving cars too fast or skydiving without a parachute. I do not want you doing those things. But a lot of things that people are afraid of, trying new things, starting dance lessons in your 50s, wearing bright colors, trying new recipes, hosting dinner parties when you've never done it before, switching careers, like a lot of things that people find genuinely very scary. After a loss, you're like, not so scary. What's the worst that could happen? And see how you go. My final tool for you grief growers is to practice saying maybe instead of never. And this is one of my favorites on this list because it is literally one that you don't need to move or to write or to anything to do. You literally just have to switch the words, the story that you are telling yourself in your head. And the reason I wrote it is this: when hopelessness shows up, it often speaks in absolutes and extremes, especially if you've experienced a permanent type of loss like a death or a divorce or a diagnosis that is ongoing. It is very tempting to think this is how it's going to be forever because the loss in some way or some flavor is also forever. So this might sound like I'll never be okay again. I will always feel this broken, or there's nothing left for me. Notice those extremist words, never, always, nothing. And that kind of thinking feels true, but it can also be the extremity? Sure, of grief talking. When you are feeling powerless, hopeless, despairing, overwhelmed, consider replacing never with maybe, or these extreme words with possibly, maybe, possibly. For example, maybe I'll feel less awful next week. Or maybe it's possible for this pain to change shape. Or maybe one day I'll find something good to look forward to again. And something I like about the words maybe and possibly is that they do not promise anything. They just open up tiny windows where there weren't windows of possibility before. And sometimes just the presence of possibility, you don't need to walk through that window, you don't need to go through the door, you don't need to do anything. Just the presence of possibility is all that you need to get through the next day or hour or week where hopelessness is also in the picture. And the thing I want you to take away from this episode is that hopelessness is a temporary state. It may be your current one, and it may be a season, not just a day or a week or a moment, but hopelessness is not a forever state. I think a lot of grieving people, including myself, thought and think that when hopelessness like thuds its heavy weight on top of grief, which is already heavy, it is very easy to think that there is nothing light or good in your world. But very tiny breaths of fresh air in the form of shifted perspective can keep you going when everything feels like it sucks and there is no point to anything. So whether you're making a list of things to stay up for, whether you are deciding who you're going to live in spite of, or going on a beauty scavenger hunt, or simply replacing extremist words in your vocabulary with softer ones, every little bit that you do matters. I want to reiterate that hopelessness and grief are not things to be fixed or to be banished or gone away. You do not have to get better at grief. The goal of these tools and exercises is to remind yourself that while, yes, hopelessness absolutely exists and is heavy, it is not all that is in the room. You are also in this room, and you have the power to make space for the hopelessness and for the small ways you can get through it, too. As a last call in this episode, if you are sick of feeling stuck in grief, which is a word that more grieving people use than anything else, I did a survey of grieving people a few years ago, and I was surprised when the word they used to describe their grief was not painful or sad or overwhelming. Most grieving people use the word stuck. I am so sick of feeling stuck in grief. So I created a workshop that helps you begin to unstick yourself from the stickiness of grief. I'm using the word sticky and stuck a lot in this sentence. Good luck to me. It's a tongue twister. You can check out my free workshop. It is called Grow Through Grief, 3 ways to stop feeling stuck and start moving forward. And in this workshop, you can find it on my website, shelbyforsythia.com. It's just in the right-hand corner. It says free workshop. I'll show you my students and clients 3 favorite tools for coping with the pain of loss, including death, divorce, diagnosis, and more, and begin to move forward again. And also at the very end of that workshop, I'll show you my 5-step grief method, GRIEF. We've talked about it before here on the show, that helps you build a life you love from the one that loss forced you to live. And you can find a free link to that workshop in the show notes. I'm sending you so much love wherever you are in grief. And if you are living in a season of hopelessness right now, I hope you'll try one or more of these tools to crack open as many windows as you can in that dark room. And one day, know that you managed to get out because of something that you found here. I'm sending you care. That's all for this episode of Grief Grower. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're looking for grief support beyond this show, you can find blog articles, my signature What's Your Grief Support Style quiz, and the free workshop I mentioned at shelbyforsythia.com/links. And if you'd like to get hands-on support from me for your unique loss experience, join the Community in Life After Loss Academy. As a student, you'll work through my 5-step grief framework for rebuilding after loss, and you can get live coaching with me and your fellow grief support students every single week to answer your questions. Replays are always available if you can't attend live, and it's just $33 a month to join or $22 a month if you're a marginalized or financially stressed griever. You can cancel your membership at any time. If this podcast felt validating, comforting, educational, or otherwise helpful to you, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And be sure to share Grief Grower with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. Grief Grower is hosted by yours truly, Shelby Forsythia, with theme music by Addie Goldstein. Until next time, I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world. And I love you, because even through grief, we are growing.